Thank you, Mr. Chair. It would seem that the issue isn't that parents have a right to raise their children. I think the issue is that a certain parent doesn't have a right to raise somebody else's child. You don't get to determine for other children what religious beliefs they get to be exposed to in their schools. And it just feels to me that Republicans and conservatives are always feigning outrage about the wrong things. For instance, right now, as we are attempting to make it harder for children to receive a holistic education, American children are falling behind by every metric on the global scale. While kids are behind in reading, conservatives are busy trying to make sure that they can't read a story about a little girl who adores her uncle who's getting married. That is the most recent outrage. Reading is a crucial part of how children learn about themselves and how much they have in common with others. It's how they learn about the world. Not only do kids deserve to see themselves reflected in books and the curriculum, they perform better when they do. The reality is that this is just another right-wing attempt, couched in parents' rights, to shield children from getting a real education. Everything this administration and the right-wing movement does is a blatant attempt to make us less educated, more narrow-minded, and easier to control. This has a massive impact on our ability to function as a society, let alone to compete internationally. Right now, we are not a country that people are taking seriously. Today, it's about exploiting religious exemptions to shield children from the reality of queer people existing, but other times it's been trying to shield children from the reality of Black history lessons and how Black history is American history, or indigenous studies, or various languages, as we've seen through the outrage of Bad Bunny performing at the Olympics. It's always centered in bigotry and xenophobia. It is suffocating our country. Mr. Rothschild, First Amendment doctrine has shifted dramatically in the last few years due to President Trump's appointments to the Supreme Court. Do you expect we will continue seeing religious freedom weaponized to justify censorship in schools? And how do you believe this will impact education, public education in our country?
Thank you for the question. Religious liberty jurisprudence has expanded drastically under Trump's administration and his appointments to the Supreme Court. So, for example, during the pandemic, the Supreme Court interpreted the meaning of religious discrimination under the Free Exercise Clause in exceptionally expansive ways, such that basically any law that doesn't provide an exemption for religion is discrimination against religion. Most recently, it's Mahmoud, where the focus is not on religious discrimination, although there's vestiges of that in Justice Alito's opinion too, where he frames the lack of opt-outs and the teaching, or the reading rather, of these picture books as hostility, as explicit hostility towards religion. So essentially anything can be framed as discrimination against religion, but technically speaking, Mahmoud is a religious liberty case, not a religious discrimination case.
So conservatives are also hoping that cases like Mahmoud versus Taylor will cause already under-resourced public schools to preemptively censor curriculums to avoid costly lawsuits from a vocal minority. We're already seeing this happen, right? A RAND study found that teachers are preemptively whitewashing curricula following the manufactured moral panic against critical race theory. In Justice Alito's ruling in Mahmoud versus Taylor, he said not allowing parents to opt out imposes a hostile environment, as you mentioned. Do you believe that this ruling could also create a hostile environment for LGBTQ plus children or other marginalized children in the same vein?
Yeah, I mean, I could just imagine, and this was argued in Mahmoud, that if you allow for opt-outs, it's not only about the administratability of the opt-outs, and one of the concerns that the board had in Mahmoud was the influx of requests for opt-outs once these children books were introduced into the curriculum. It's not just administratability, it's also the messaging that is sent when children are allowed to walk out of the classroom as soon as teachings about inclusivity of other children is implemented.
Thank you. Conservatives are exploiting religious freedom to suppress other constitutional rights, like the separation of church and state or equal protection. Our duty to religious freedom does not absolve us as a duty to protect marginalized groups from environments that condemn our existence. I want to end with the important point that despite this administration's best efforts, inclusive educational materials are still legal in this country. I welcome a hearing about the decision in American Federation of Teachers et al. Versus U.S. Department of Education et al. That struck down the department's guidance against diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And I stand with all the educators, students, and families navigating the bigotry and the xenophobia of this administration. We are working to ensure that children feel included and accepted and safe and have the opportunity to become educated global citizens. I yield back.